I invite you now into a time of gratitude, reflection, renewal, and hope with these words by Sam Trumbore, entitled Holding Reality and Possibility Together. What an unearned blessing to delight in the calming peace of this space, to hear the robin's song again at daybreak, to feel the warmth in this room, and to enjoy the promise of summer almost upon us. Each moment of wakefulness has so many gifts that offer energy and delight. Yet too often they seem unavailable as the weight of our troubles press down upon us. The threats to our well-being, real or exaggerated, feel like mosquitoes in the night looking for a place to land. Minds become captive to rising floodwaters, forceful, murky, threatening, and ominous. Even in moments of great danger, the direction of attention is a choice. Fear can dominate the mind, blinding it like a straitjacket, or love can unbind it and open it to the resource and opportunity. The soil of the mind can be watered with kindness. The thorns can be removed one by one to appreciate the buds ready to flower. Great possibilities await us, even if all we can see is the cliff before us. The grandeur of life of which we are a part scatters rainbows in every direction, even as the deluge approaches. Holding reality and possibility together is the holy, hope-filled work of humanity, if we choose it again and again in love. The hymn we are about to hear, you may know some of the words to, and if you do, I invite you to sing along. It's entitled Woyaya. It was written by Osibisa and sung by Wiyala. Every time I hear that song, it brings tears to my eyes. The song we just heard, Woyaya, was written in 1971 by Osibisa, a musical group of Ghanaian and Caribbean musicians. It's one of those timeless songs that carries both joy and depth in equal measure. Woyaya is an anthem of resilience, pride, and forward movement rooted in the long struggle for liberation across post-independence Africa. And it speaks to perseverance, unity, and the long journey towards freedom and self-belief. The lyrics encourage patience and collective effort, reminding us that progress takes time, but hope must remain alive. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going, but we know within. I didn't know where I was going either when I registered for a seminary class that would turn out to matter far more than I ever expected. In a personal effort to find the obviously super simple solution to solving world peace, the first of my kind to do so, clearly, I inadvertently earned a concentration in conflict transformation. Among the many courses I took was a class entitled Theology and Ethics of Reconciliation. The objective of the course was to discuss the tasks and challenges of reconciliation as a process involving truth, justice, forgiveness, and renewed relationships. You can imagine how, as a Unitarian Universalist, this course felt theologically electric. Justice, truth, forgiveness, and right relationship. Ooh, that is the bread and butter of our covenantal faith, right? When I first registered for the course, I did not realize how timely and necessary it would be for this moment in our history as a faith and as a country. I signed up thinking about how important this topic would be for the interpersonal work I see as a chaplain in a hospital system. I didn't expect to watch the ever-present divide between moral and religious ideologies get incited into what now feels like an insurmountable chasm. One of the most important takeaways I gleaned from this course is that conflict transformation is complex, imperfect, and full of gray area. There is no easy path to transformation. Transformation asks the one who caused harm to engage in truth-telling and take accountability for their wrongdoing. It makes an even more difficult ask of those who have been harmed, to remain open to a process that offers no guarantee when closing off completely would feel so much safer. My class on reconciliation introduced me to the writings of Miroslav Volf, a Croatian theologian writing out of the trauma of the Balkan Wars, a conflict where neighbor turned on neighbor, along the very lines of ethnic and religious identity we're watching fracture here. As a response to the growing divide, Volf developed a 4-step metaphor for reconciliation as an embrace, beginning, he says, with the opening of the arms. With open arms, I make known the fact that I have created space in myself for the other to come in. This is exceptionally vulnerable, necessary work. To open your arms literally is to expose everything that keeps you alive, your chest, your throat, your heart. This sits diametrically opposed to our survival instincts. Think about what your body does when you're afraid. It curls in, arms cross, shoulders rise around the ears. Every instinct we have for self-protection tells us to retreat inward, to guard, to make ourselves smaller and harder to reach. When we anticipate attack, we assume a posture of defensiveness and hypervigilance. Yet in the same way we cannot move through an embrace with closed arms, we cannot find a path out of the muddy and rough parts of life without first doing the interior work of healing the fractured and broken pieces within ourselves. When we let ourselves be consumed by injustice, when we let our wounds dictate our narrative, we are held captive by righteous yet caustic anger and resentment. Simply put, hurt people hurt people. I want to take a moment to explicitly state that naming this is not the same as excusing it. To say hurt people is not to say that all harm is equally weighed, or that the wounded are obligated to forgive, or that healing has to happen on anyone's timeline but their own. It is only to say that if we want a way through conflict and not just around it towards some new rupture down the road, we cannot skip the work of tending to our own wounds first. That work belongs to the one who was harmed and the one who caused harm alike. And it does not look the same for both. This brings us to the second part of this embrace analogy. Although open arms initiate this metaphor for reconciliation, what follows is an essential pause, a waiting while we hope for the invitation to be received and reciprocated. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be coerced. Covenant is patient in this exact way. It does not demand instant reciprocity, only the discipline to remain in relationship while reciprocity is still uncertain. As Volf writes, waiting is a sign that although embrace may have a one-sidedness in its origin, it can never reach its goal without reciprocity. This waiting takes faith in knowing we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It is stepping out in the midst of open water and not knowing if there is another stone to land on. It is only with strong yet porous boundaries, two opposing forces do the work of opening and waiting, and I would add, initiating forward momentum toward one another, that the goal of the embrace, the closing of the arms, can happen. This reciprocal action gives way to the culmination of the metaphor in the act of the reopening of the arms. In the same way, embrace does not make two bodies one, reconciliation cannot occur through domination or through homogenization. In other words, an embrace based on consent and accountability does not allow the I to disappear in the we. With this final act of opening of the arms, again, each person's uniqueness is upheld and the self takes back itself. So what does that actually look like when applied on a Tuesday evening at your own kitchen table, right? It looks like a woman who was neglected, abused, and abandoned by her mother doing the slow work of understanding what kind of pain produces a parent capable of that, and letting herself see her mother as more than abuse, as a person worthy of love, even as she keeps her at a permanent distance. Both of these things are true at once. Her mother is not welcomed back into her life, and her mother is not outside of the circle of love. Neither cancels out the other. It looks like letting go of the expectation that repair will require a reunion. It looks like Tim Byrne and James Curran, two UUA staff members beaten in New Orleans in 2017, one so badly that he suffered a brain injury, writing letters to the judge asking not for punishment but restorative justice, for their attackers to be seen as more than the worst thing that they had done. Let me be clear about what this is not. This is not a call to stay at any table with anyone, no matter the cost. A policy disagreement is not the same as a violation of your humanity. An embrace was never meant to be a demand that the harm keep absorbing harm in the name of reconciliation. Wolf himself insists on this. The one who opens their arms does not surrender their boundaries in the process. One must discern honestly whether this is a relationship where you still have the resources to open your arms at all. And honestly, sometimes the answer is no. Knowing when to engage in the work of an embrace and when you are still too wounded to do that work safely is vital to successful conflict transformation. In his work, Common Prayer, A Liturgy for Ordinary Radicals, author Shane Claiborne clarifies this distinction, saying, peacemaking doesn't mean passivity. It is the act of interrupting injustice without mirroring injustice, the act of disarming evil without destroying the evildoer, the act of finding a third way that is neither fight nor flight, but the careful, arduous pursuit of reconciliation and justice. It is about a revolution of love that is big enough to set the oppressed and the oppressors free. Unitarian Universalists are no strangers to conflict. Born out of heresy, our religious ancestors were exiled, even executed for insisting that God's love could not be limited by creed or condemnation. We have never had the luxury of easy consensus. We have always had to fight publicly and painfully for what we believe. In 1969, our own denomination fractured publicly over a demand for racial justice when the Black Affairs Council asked the UUA to fund Black-led self-determination work, and white members walked out of the General Assembly rather than reckon with what that would cost them. This fracture came to be known as the empowerment controversy, and its wounds have shaped this faith for a generation. We have had to learn what it means to take accountability, however imperfectly, and we are still, may always be, learning. Such is the nature of this living tradition. Just as our faith will always be learning from this tragedy, so too is our society continuing to work through the echoes of the founding of our country and the violence that it has historically been complicit in. It's important to take a moment to name that reconciliation cannot happen without there first being a reckoning. It's 2026, y'all, and muddy and rough is an understatement for the state of our union. Our society is facing a reckoning unlike anything many of us have personally known. We are staring down the barrel of a collapsing economy and a social order that was built upon the backs of enslaved and dispossessed, the indigenous, the poor, and the working class. More than 250 years of exploitation, oppression, and systemic violence. I could get up here and pretend that this moment came out of nowhere. I could call it unprecedented times, but that would ignore the fact that what we are experiencing now has been carefully built and maintained and protected for generations. This is not some new unknown horror we are facing. This is not a rupture from an otherwise peaceful and just past. This is the foundation upon which this empire was built. The difference now is proximity. What has always been hell on earth for some is becoming newly visible, newly disruptive, and newly uncomfortable for those who have long profited or been protected from its worst effects. We face the same evils today that have birthed many faith traditions throughout human history. Spirituality and religion have emerged as a response to empire. Jesus' ministry was radical because it confronted a religious and political system that hoarded resources, sanctified inequality, and profited from the suffering of the poor. The prophets of Judaism rose up against kings and empires that built wealth and power from the labor of the vulnerable. Islam emerged in a context of extreme wealth disparity, with an insistence on redistribution and care for the poor. Buddhist teachings named suffering as the fruit of greed and domination. Indigenous spiritual practices have long resisted extraction by insisting on maintaining right relationship with land and community. Across time and faith traditions, it is clear that when power is hoarded and people are exploited, faith answers the call by providing hope that another way of being is possible. As we look to the future, we should not romanticize returning to the way things were, to some idealized and imaginary past. There is no justice there. What lies ahead may feel apocalyptic and insurmountable in nature. What might happen if we view what is to come instead as an invitation to birth a reconciled world community? Our own denomination is asking this question too, right now, through a framework called Meet the Moment, a call for congregations across our faith to build shared understanding of the moment that we're in, to discern honestly what our values ask of us, and to act with courage rather than wait for certainty that may never come. This charge asks us to stay in the work of figuring it out together, which is in the end Wolf's embrace, translated onto the work of a community. The opening of the arms, the waiting, the willingness to be changed by what we don't yet understand. If reconciliation is love made real through right relationship, then the question becomes not what we believe about love, but what we are willing to do because of it. I want to say that again. If reconciliation is love made real through right relationship, then the question becomes not what we believe about love, but what we are willing to do because of it. Unitarian Universalism insists that we put our faith into action and allow Spirit, Holy Mystery, love, whatever name you may give it, to move through us and take flesh in the world through the work we do for our neighbors, even the ones who may look, believe, or vote differently than we do. We take action because love calls us forward. It will get hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough. And we have a way to go before we see the other side. But by committing ourselves to the long relational work of building a reconciled community we have never fully known, I believe we will get there. As we embark on the long road ahead, may we have the courage to practice the love we proclaim. May we find sustenance for the work ahead in the love shared with one another. And may we keep choosing to believe that a better world is possible. With open arms, we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. May it be so.